Hi, I'm Carter McPhee, OTD student at Indiana Wesleyan University.
Hi, I'm Ashley Martin, and I will be playing the role of a 10-year-old child.
Today we're going to be administering the ETCH assessment. For the ETCH assessment, you want to make sure that it is in a well-lit area, secluded from everyone else, free from audible and visual distractions. You must remove anything with lettering from the field of vision. The surface of the table must be approximately 2 inches above the child's flexed elbow when seated. The examiner must be positioned on the opposite side of the dominant hand, and the response booklet, task sheets, and pencils should be on the child's desk. You must use a standard number 2 pencil. The response booklet is face up and at the midline. When administering the ETCH assessment, you need to make sure that you have a stopwatch and the quick reference sheet so that you're aware of what to say. Ashley, are you ready to start?
Yes.
Ashley, write your first name on this line. Ashley, starting here, write each of the alphabet letters separately in lowercase, starting with A and ending with Z. If you make a mistake on a letter, you only get to erase it one time. If by chance you don't know how to write one of the letters, put a dot like this. In its place. Are you ready?
Okay.
Begin. Okay, good job, Ashley. Next on the assessment, we're going to be administering the numeral writing. The child is going to write the numbers 1 through 12. This time, write the numbers 1 through 12. Remember, if you make a mistake on a number, you only get to erase it one time. You can begin here. Good job, Ashley.
Thanks.
Next on the ETCH assessment is the near point copying. For the near point copying, you need to place the bottom of the near point copying task sheet on the child's desk approximately 3 inches from the top of the child's response booklet. Ashley, read this sentence aloud.
Ships flew by the moon.
Okay, now write the sentence on these lines.
These lines?
Yes, those lines. Remember, if you need to correct a letter, you can only do so one time. Ready? Begin. Good job, Ashley. Next on the ETCH assessment is the far point copying. For the far point copying, you need to attach the wall chart with masking tape to the wall 6 to 8 feet from the child's desk and 4 feet from the floor. Now look at the sentence on the wall chart in front of you. Can you read it?
Yes.
Okay, now write the sentence on these lines. Remember, if you need to correct a letter, you can only do so one time. Ready? Begin.
job, Ashley.
Next on the ETCH assessment is the dictation part. During the dictation part, I'm going to pause for 3 seconds after I deliver the letters and numbers that Ashley will need to write on the piece of paper. Ashley, now we will do a different type of a writing task. I will say aloud different letters to form 2 nonsense words and 5 numbers to make a zip code. You can write the words in lowercase on these lines. Do not use uppercase or capital letters. I will only say each letter 1 time, so please listen closely. Be sure to write in lowercase letters only. Are you ready?
Yes.
On this line, write the letters B-O-I. Z-T. Next, C-L-A. G-Y. And now for the numbers. 582 7-3. Good job, Ashley. Next on the ETCH assessment is the sentence composition. Ashley, this time you can make up a sentence you would like to write. Be sure the sentence has 5 or more words in it. I will give you a few seconds to think of a sentence that then you can write it down here. If you don't know how to spell a word in the sentence, just do the best you can. Ready? Begin. Good job.
Booyah.
Now I'm going to go over the only part of the cursive assessment that deviates from the manuscript assessment. That is the manuscript to cursive transition. For the manuscript to cursive transition, you need to place the bottom of the manuscript to transition task sheet on the child's desk approximately 3 inches from the top of the child's response booklet at midline. 3 inches, midline. Ashley, read this sentence aloud.
Astronauts waved to 60 cows below.
Okay. Now write the sentence in cursive on these lines. Remember, if you need to correct a letter, you can and only do so 1 time. Ready?
Yes.
Begin. Good job.
Hello again, I'm Ashley Martin, and I'm going to explain a bit of our scoring for the ETCH. For our scoring, there are different categories that you will use and see on the score sheets. One of these categories are boxes. They are shown here as a little square. Another category would be circles. They are shown here with a little circle. Another category is known as the arrow. Some people may consider this as a caret, but in this ETCH assessment, we're calling it an arrow. Another category would be the pound sign, also known as the hashtag, aka YOLO. Another category that you may see on the ETCH for scoring is the close-up mark, and that is kind of like a little smile. You'll see that possibly. And the last category that you might see would be a category of no markings. And get it? it's empty, so there's nothing written there. So watch out for that one. Here you'll see how we are basically going to score the first part of the ETCH assessment. On one side, we have the child's response booklet, and on the other side, we have the score sheet that the examiner is going to put our markings on. To start this off, you're going to fill out the information for the child. You're going to include the child's name, their grade, the examiner's name, the date of the evaluation in year, month, and day, date of birth of the child, year, month, and day, and the chronological age. Our child was 10 years old. The next part on the scoring sheet is going to be this thing here, which is the key. It is a little bit small to see, so I'll explain what those categories are. We have 8 categories. They are omitted, illegible, letter case, letter formation, size, the alignment, spacing, and unacquired. And we're going to start by analyzing the letters that the child wrote over here. So we're going to start by looking at the first letters, A, B, and C. Those letters are fine. There are no errors with those. So we come to our next letter, which is D. This has an error, so what we do is we circle it in red, and over here we go to the letter D, which is this column, and our error is that the letter D has a wrong alignment. This is because the alignment needs to have letter D within these 2 lines, the top and the bottom. If it goes below it or above it, it is an alignment error. So over here, we put a check in the AL alignment with the D column. The next letter we moved on to is E. E is correct, there is no error. The next letter that follows would be F, or it should have been F. This error is not only going to be alignment because it is with outside the lines, it is also illegible. The argument for being that a letter is illegible shows that when you analyze the letter as one unique unit outside of the context, it is too difficult to read what that letter is. So if you were to see this letter just written on a piece of paper, there's no way you could understand it was an F. So based on that argument, we're going to say it is illegible. For the ETCH assessment in general, you're giving the benefit of the doubt to the child if you can make the letter legible. It is only in extreme circumstances in which it is illegible that you would mark it as illegible. So over here, we're going to go to our F column and illegible row and put a check, and we'll also go to the alignment for the F column and put a check. Alright, our next 2 letters, G and H, are correct, so we have no errors. The next letter would be I. I has an error. The error is, again, alignment, and it was tricky. The only problem was that the dot was outside of the lines at the top. The shaft of the I is fine. The only problem was the dot, but the whole letter created an error. The next one, we have J. Very similar situation. J has an alignment issue. This time it is not above the line, it is below the line. So we had an error and we circled it. The letter K was fine, so we moved on to the next one, which is the letter L. L, we had a similar issue of an alignment problem based on the fact that the child drew a little part of the L below the line. We moved on to the next letter of M down here. This is an error, but this is a very different error compared to the other ones. It is within the line, so it is not an alignment problem. This error is that it is letter formation. The examiner noticed that when the child wrote this, they started by putting their pencil here, and they moved it backward. So you can tell that the letter M was started from a line that was not started correctly. The normal fashion of drawing an M or writing an M would be to start from left and move to right. So the child started from a different perspective, and that's how the letter formation was incorrect. So over here we went to the M column, and LF for letter formation, we put a check. The next 3 letters, NOP, those are fine, no errors, brings us to Q. Q column, the error that we cite is that it is, again, alignment issue because it is below the lines that it should be in. The next letter that we found an error in would be the letter R. This is different because here, the letter R was omitted. We notate this by using an arrow, and then we put a pound sign, and then we draw a circle with the little r inside of it for how it should be correct. To notate this on the scoring sheet, we go to the R column, and then we wrote in the omit row and put a check. The next letters, S, T, U, are fine, so we had no checks. The next letter was a V. This error was not that the letter was written incorrectly. The fact is, in this task, we had to use lowercase letters. The child did a V, but they used a case capital letter. So that was marked as an error. So down here, you're going to find the V column, and you come over to case, and you mark a check mark, because they wrote a capital letter instead of a lowercase letter. The last four, W, X, Y, Z, are fine, and there were no errors. So once you have gone through and made your check marks, you then go and analyze this part of the scoring. On this side, you're going to look at your first column of omissions and add up your checks. We have 1, so we put a 1 in the subtotals. The next one is the illegible row. We're adding up our check marks. We only had 1, so we put a 1 there. We add up subtotals from the omissions and subtotals of the illegibles, and we get 2 to equal the illegibles words total. After this part, we take that 2 and we subtract it from the 26 letters of the alphabet. So 26 minus the 2 illegible letters equals 24 letters that were written correctly. We then go into the manual book, and we find on page 152 or around there several charts that show percentages of how many letters are correct, and the percentage that it gives for 24 letters is associated with 92.3%. And then we also kept track of the 90 seconds that it took the child to do this first task of the assessment. So this finishes our first scoring of the first task, and then you would do the same thing for task B, but in uppercase letters, and you would make all your markings, find your percentage, and include it there. Then we move to this section. Down here, this talks about the pencil grasps. We noticed that I used a dynamic tripod grasp, which is the most common grasp for a child to use when holding their pencil. I was right-handed, and the grasp descriptors that talked about the web spacing in my hand showed that it was open. And then my thumb placement was that of being opposed as I held the pencil, and the finger positions of the rest of my fingers in relation to my thumb were that they were flexed. So you have to consider and watch this information as your child is performing the assessment, because it is critical that you have to report on the scoring sheet. Hope this helps.
Hi, I'm Gary Glatz, OTDS at Indiana Wesleyan University, and I'm going to explain task 2 of the ETCH assessment for numeral writing. So as prompted, the child wrote all 12 numbers in succession. All were legible except for 1. 4 is backwards. So we circled the 4, that was backwards. That's the one error out of the numeral writing. And we go over to our score sheet. We left all of them blank that were correct, that were legible, and we put a check mark under illegible for 4, and we marked that it was the letter formation is why it was illegible. So as before, we will carry over the illegible numbers to the subtotals. So there were 12 total numbers, 1 illegible, for a total of 11 legible numbers. And at a time of 30 seconds, you look in the back of the book for the ETCH assessment, and you'll see that it gives you a letter legibility percentage of 91.6. Now, for the near point copying, far point copying, dictation, and sentence composition, it's a very similar process as before. How it's going to be broken down is you're going to have the full word, and you're going to have the letter legibility. So whenever you do the scoring, you're going to count what is legible. So for near point copying, for example, there's 5 total words and 18 total letters. There was 1 error, which was a backwards S, and that means that the word was therefore illegible. So there was a total of 5 words, 1 was illegible, so 4 were legible for a total of 80%. Like I said before, there was a backwards S. That's 17 total legible out of 18 letters, 94%. Then you have to go over here to speed. It took 45 seconds for our child to do that part of the assessment. And whenever you divide it out, it's 0.75 minutes. You have to change seconds into minutes. And you want to find the letters per minute score, which is the total number of letters, which is 18, divided by 0.75 for minutes to get 24 letters per minute. Now over on this side we have the rank. you will see that you have letter formation, size, alignment, and spacing. What you want to do is you want to rank from 1 to 4, 1 being most detrimental to legibility and 4 being least detrimental. We ranked letter formation as a 1 for most detrimental because that was the error. It was therefore illegible because it wasn't formed correctly. The other rankings are null and void because they were not applicable. We had no other errors, so we put hash marks there to signify that there was nothing to need to be scored. Same goes for far point copying, dictation, and sentence composition. You do the letters or words or numbers legible over illegible to get your percentages. I know everybody's sleeping right now because I am from explaining this, so I'm going to do a speed round for you to explain on how this goes. Full word, letter, full word, letter, full word, the letter, the full word, the letter. You divide all of it out and you get these numbers down here. Now, if you look at these numbers, all you do is you carry it over from the chart, you do the maths for them, so you get 14 divided by 17, 118 divided by 25, 16 divided by 17, and you get totals for 82%, 94%, and 94% for the word, for the letter, and for the numeral. Our kid did great, and I'm done. I'm out of here. Forget it. I'm now going to explain the ETCH score sheet for pencil management. This part of the assessment is only in the cursive domain of ETCH, not in the manuscript. Now, for pencil management, there's going to be, you can break it up into 3 different sections. The first section, which has these categories, you'll be watching these as you give the child the assessment, and you'll be writing these down afterwards. So you can look through continual writing movement, whether it's fluent, irregular, or dysfunctional, position consistency of the pencil, which is consistent or inconsistent, positional consistency of paper, consistent or inconsistent, and pencil pressure, which can be suitable, heavy, or light, just like Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. Find one that's just right. Now, these ones are going to be very subjective. They're not quantitative. But as you go through, you can circle which ones the child has, and that's all part of the assessment. Now, this second part of the ETCH score sheet, manipulation of pencil and hand, you saw Carter giving the assessment earlier, and it has to do with translation shift, simple rotation, and complex rotation. And you will grade these after you give that assessment. And then classroom observations. We'll be talking about this in our PowerPoint because it's part of preparation. So you actually give this before you even start the assessment. So we probably already talked about this before you watch it. Thank you.
When administering the ETCH assessment, you need to make sure that you have a timer and the quick reference sheet so that you are aware of what to say. Will you write your name right here?
My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard.
Now we're about to begin the uppercase portion of the alphabet writing. Ashley,
Yes.
this time when you write the alphabet, write it in uppercase letters. If you make a mistake on a letter, remember you only get to erase.
I saw that in film school.
A few seconds to think of a sentence, and then you can write it down here.
Excuse me, it's after hours. I'm gonna need you guys to leave. And by the way, we're not open on Sundays.
Now we're going to move on to the pencil management of the ETCH assessment. This is the translation portion. We're going to see how well you can roll your pencil in your hand. I'll show you how to do it. Please watch my hand. First, I'm going to place the pencil right here. I'm rolling the pencil to the tips of my fingers like this. And then I roll it back. Now, let's have you roll the pencil for
it. Yep. Not 1:30 p.m. Hello down there. As I was saying before my camera battery died and Carter has to film from the floor.
Thanks for joining us on our ride through this magical time of the ETCH assessment. Just remember, stay classy, Indiana Wesleyan.